purpose, work begun. Co-author of a movement, not-for-profits game, teaching kids that self-belief can ease the pain. Every child deserves to face their fears with measured thinking, not just tears. She's planting seeds of strength.
Honestly, I was having so much fun with that song. I do like that song. How are you doing, Paulette?
I've lost you now, Annie. Hello.
You haven't lost me. I'm still here.
Okay, you've gone to that circle thing that I was. Hello, everyone. Hi.
No.
Hello.
I can see me. So
Okay.
hopefully everyone else can too. I'll tell you in a second. Let me look on my YouTube.
Can anybody see us? Because we couldn't see ourselves, honestly.
No.
It's never straightforward, this tech stuff. I tell you, never. Something's always going wrong.
No, don't say that. Something's always happening. No, we're both on YouTube, so it's all right. It doesn't always go wrong. It goes wrong sometimes.
It doesn't go wrong. It just torments the life out of us.
Yes. It buggers about, which is way of saying and stuff, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it does. Yes. Anyway, hi everyone. Nice to see you. It's been a whole week, so yeah, haven't been to many shows. No, well, it hasn't. It seems like it's so much longer between shows because I used to spend so much time on LinkedIn, and because of the pain I'm going through at the moment, I just can't do it. I can do a bit and then I can't do anything for a bit afterwards. So I'll take a diazepam and then it's good night Vienna. So, I apologize to my friends for not supporting them, but thank you for supporting me. And I mean that with all my heart. So everybody hopefully knows who I am. So Paulette Hallam, I've been to the dizzy heights, as they say, of the corporate world. And I got there from being a child that was once in care. So it does show you that with determination and focus and a lot of luck and a lot of hard work, you can go and do anything you want to do, and a lot of self-belief. And I think that that's really comes through in everything I do. And certainly that's who I am, and that's why you get what you get from me. So I'm a fully qualified therapist now, although I'm not in practice, but I am actually using those skills in many different ways. So that's who I am. And today we're going to be talking about the really important topic of children and young readers and why it's important that we get them to love books, not just because I'm an author, but because of the actual real reasons behind it. And I've got some real science for you. But let's introduce Enya Song first, the godfather of LinkedIn. So over to you, Mr. Osang.
Honestly, am I blushing yet?
You're frozen.
I'm not frozen. I don't move much.
At all, in fact.
Because I'm not used to sitting down. I'm not used to sitting down, right?
Yeah, you're not. Move a shoulder or something. Give us a
wiggle. I move. Look, I move. I do move.
No, there's no movement at all. All I've got is a flat.
Okay, that's on your screen.
Okay, all right. On my screen, you're just like a silhouette.
A statue. Yay! Yes, no, I'm. My screen's still working, so no, I'm definitely moving.
There you go.
I'm scratching my nose now.
Now you're moving. Now you're
right. Anyway, I tried to stream to X, as they call it, Twitter.
Okay.
Because now that's StreamYard that put me on a £300 a month package subscription.
We might as well use it, eh?
Yeah, I'm not paying it. And when the time comes, StreamYard, I'll be on. You find me on Restream, my friends. Same thing. If not, I'll go somewhere else, right? But they said that I have to be a premium member to stream to X, so that's not going to happen. So no, X does nothing for me at all. So it's what it is. No, I'm excited to be here. So some of our friends are here. So
Excellent.
I'm excited. You know, so let's welcome Jay. How you doing,
Oh,
Jay? Hello,
my
Jay.
lovely Jay. I love
Yes,
Jay. Oh, and Sharon. Hi,
Sharon
Sharon.
Rose is here. Apparently, I'm here as well on my
Hi,
YouTube.
Annie.
Surprise, surprise! Who would have known, right? And I don't
Absolutely.
know who LinkedIn user is, and I guess it could be Christiana, probably. You know, it could be someone else, right? You know, let me work it out because I'm sure I can. If I just do the YouTube thing and let that go live. No, life is good. Life is good, Paula. And as you know, we're 2 weeks away from our
Uh,
author speakers conference, Paula.
yeah.
The event page is all set up. The marketing stuff is being shared. I think we're going to meet on Saturday. This is our speakers. So yes. So now I'm on there. So now we're on YouTube. So on LinkedIn, so I can see. Mosey, Marsha, our LinkedIn angel, she's the one who's the LinkedIn user. So glad
Oh,
you're here. And Moses is here as well
Martha.
from Kampala in Uganda, in East Africa. There's many more people here, but they haven't spoken yet. So my friends, do say hi. If you don't say hi, I can see the numbers, but I can't see who. So do say hi and then do join
And
us.
I'm going to let you into a little secret. I might have had just one or two of those pills that take the pain away. So if I'm a little bit, hey, a little bit,
A little
just
bit
go with it.
woozy. That
Go with
one.
it. It's not the woozy ones. It's the ones that get me a bit ooh. So if I start getting a bit frantic, just say, "Calm down, Paulette. You're getting too excited."
No.
So,
So the drugs do work.
yeah, they numb the pain, but they also kind of mess with your head a bit. So, no, I mean, not I don't do anything like really stupid, like go on a mad shopping spree, maybe, or that would be my excuse. But no, I'm there's it's got loads of side effects, but most of them are to do with
That's all
being
right.
ill.
No,
But you know, I'm as
Marshall.
long as I get through an hour of this, I'll be over the
Yes.
moon. And I'm just very determined to make sure that we have fun, but we get that message across that is so important for me to try and not just educate, because that sounds almost like I'm being condescending. I'm not being condescending. What I'm saying is we don't know until we know. Okay. And so knowledge has to be imparted somewhere. So all I want to say is that, oh, hello, Dr. Dorothy is here. Hey.
Yes,
So,
and the great musician himself.
hey, hi,
Yeah.
Mike. Lovely
How
to
you
see you.
doing?
Yeah, great to see you. So let's get on with a bit of the show and story.
Go for it. Go for it.
Right. So the sciencey bit first, which I think that is so important. Why it's so important for children to read young and to be read to is because their brains are literally building themselves. It's like a filing cupboard, and that's a really way to look at it. It's a really good way. In fact, that was one of the ways that my one of my tutors told me, that children's minds are like filing cupboards, and they only access certain files when their minds are able to. So sometimes a child won't even know something has happened to it until that particular day on that particular, and they don't know why. That particular day they'll go to that filing cupboard and they will tell you, but we don't know why they didn't tell us the 6 months or a year before. And the same thing applies to reading. And the reason I bring this up, imagine this filing cupboard. So in early childhood, the brain is not just forming connections at lightning speed. Reading helps it to build language. It builds word pathways. Now that sounds odd, but what it means is it connects, like the word sweet, with a sensation of a nice taste, with a connection of if I'm good, I might get. So there, it starts to make these little patterns up. So it's the language that's key. It strengthens memory and retention and attention. So you'll sit and you'll be able to apply. So give the attention. You'll have the retention, but also it strengthens the memory. Helps children understand patterns that, so like cause and effect and sequencing, like I just said. If I'm good, mummy smiles and goes cooch cooch goo or whatever, or if I'm a baby and when I'm being read to, mummy gets excited and giggles and uses the funny voices that I like to listen to. So it's a sort of associations that we aren't even aware of that are going on in their little whirring minds. So being read to is especially powerful because children hear rich language before they can actually even decode the words themselves. So that is something that you might not have realized. But when you're talking about the red fire engine in the book, this is the red fire engine. The red fire engine is coming down the road. Every time you say the word red, it associates the color with the red, the fire engine. It also knows about the fire engine. So it looks at fire engines when they're out on the road and will recognize that that's a fire engine. Now, with autism, everything is learnt. You literally have to sit down with a book and say, fire engine, red, this, that, because they don't necessarily pick up those cues, or some autisms don't. Ben certainly didn't. Everything he was learnt individually as a word. But generally speaking, children make those connections. Like they hear you talk about look out the window and everyone goes like that. They now know that's the window. With Ben, he had to be shown that that's a window and tell him that's the window, you see. Whereas a child generally would have just picked that up as a cue. Being read to creates something called emotional safety. And I loved the idea of this when I was going back to my notes that I'd written years ago now. But it does create an emotional safety and connection. So when you're sitting there, whether the child's on your lap, whether the child's in bed, or it's that sort of, or whether you're on the sofa having a cuddle up under a blanket, you know, when you are doing that, you don't realize it, but you're actually showing a huge amount of love and safety and connection and emotion. And an adult reading to a child, the child associates books with that warmth, that comfort, that attention, that calmness, a feeling of being valued. And the emotional bond is one of language, words, but the strongest predictor is really that the child is decoding and understanding what those words mean in sequence. So it's, you know, I think one of Ben's favorites, you know, was always the cat in the hat and the da, 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 da. And in the end he could recite the whole thing. Yeah. And I think the part of that was fun was the rhythm, you know, the rhyming, the rhythm of the book. And that's another thing that they get from it is the musicality of words. The way your voice intonates also makes the book interesting. So if you speak in a monotone voice like this, and the voice, the child won't take as much engagement as, and then, oh gosh, what's around the corner? What do you think it could be? Shall we have a look? Shall we turn the page? Shall we? You know, all that kind of fun engagement gives that feeling of like, this is so much fun. I love it. I'm really enjoying this time with my parent. It grows vocabulary, obviously, faster than anything else. It grows vocabulary quicker than you speak into it, because when we speak, we're giving commands. Normally, it's go and clear up your room, go and clear up that mess, go and do this. It's dinner will be in 10 minutes. We're giving command language. When we're reading, we're actually giving them so much more because the vocabulary is varied. So it's not command language, it's a varied language. And that's something that I think we forget, but it's a good time to remember. It gives them better speaking skills. Now, why I say that, and then that is not a snobby thing or a middle class thing. It's just that when a child can use language, they can express themselves. They don't go, it's this and it's that. You know, the this and the that, the thing that did the that and this and that. There's actual vocabulary and words they can put in those sentences. And that helps them grow when they come to write. So when they're in a position, when they're writing their stories, they'll remember the vocabulary that they learned in the stories they listened to. So a comprehension, a strong comprehension, stronger understanding of what the words mean, and the confidence to use those words, you know, so they can express thoughts and feelings. And that's a really interesting one. Why is that important? Because we want children to be able to express themselves. If they haven't got the language skills to do that, how can they? So what we want to do is give them the language skills so that they're in a position that they can actually express themselves. So vocabulary is one of the biggest predictors of academic success across all subjects. Now, that isn't, again, a middle class thing. It doesn't matter where you come from or what your background is. It's an understanding of what are we getting from these books? What are we actually understanding? If you're given a textbook, my goodness, they can be boring, right? But if you're told to go away and read that chapter and learn what it's about, then you go away, you've got your book, you read that chapter. When you come back to class, if you're the only one that really understood it, because you've got the vocabulary, because you've got the language skills, it just shows you how many in the class haven't been read to, don't have that access to that safety of someone sitting with them, even as they're older. You know, don't think that just because they're now 8 and they can read for themselves, when they're reading for themselves, it's actually great to get them to read to you. Get them to sit and read to you and show interest in what they're reading. What book have you got today? Oh, what's this all about? You know, show interest, and then you will actually see them glow from what they've been able to achieve. Look at me, I'm now reading age 10 and I'm only 8, you know. That kind of thing is magnificent. So the upsides of reading young, in other words, children who have listened to you and learnt and then are able to start putting together words. My 4-year-old nephew's we have a game where you're on the floor with, unfortunately I'm usually laying because that's how it works, but we end up like he goes like this and I have to do the same thing, and we're laying on the floor, which is fun getting me up. But anyway, he'll say, can you find train? And there'll be a tr, a tr, and then somewhere there'll be an ain, and he knows that tr and ain makes train. He's 4. He was 4 in November. I think that's phenomenal. She's already got him being able to put together words. But when you read, you don't miss out a word, you don't miss out a paragraph. And God forbid you try and sneak 2 pages in one because the book's going on and on and on. He's like, no, back we go. He knows every word on every page, loves reading. And he will go through 2 or 3 stories a night. So fortunately, we now keep them to short stories because otherwise we'd be there till midnight. So about that word, putting those words together, I think that language skill then helps them when they get to school is magnificent. And if you can do it and you've got the time, I think it's a great thing to do. B-A-T, bat. Can we find the b? Can we find the at? And then he knows the b sound and the at sound. Bat. What is a bat? A bat, you know, that flies in the air. No, silly. It's like with cricket and cricket bat. So he knows there are two bats. I think that is huge. But that comes from listening to his parents, reading every single night. And evidence. I don't need to have any more evidence than looking at my nephew Harry to see how magnificent the work is when you put it in. Children who read young tend to see books in a very different way. They see them as fun, which is great. They see them as a thing of enjoyment, not work. They see them as a source of comfort and escape. And that's this message of the lifelong reader. How do we make a lifelong reader? You make a lifelong reader by letting them love books. And if they love books, they're going to always love books. I mean, we have thousands of books in this house, and I don't exaggerate. We give so many books away, and somehow they keep coming. If we go to a boot sale, it could be a nightmare. We could come back with another carrier bag full of Terry Pratchett's until we got the whole set, you know, and then we go for the next thing. And Ben loved to collect sets. So, yeah, we have a lot of books. And at the moment, there's no getting rid of them. So at some point in the future, we keep putting carry bags of books out and they go. And then Ben will be like, wait, what happened to my set of horrible histories? And I'm like, well, come on, you don't need them now. But I liked them. I know you did. But I associate them with a really good time. All right, we'll re-get them. You know, we'll look on eBay and back we buy them. Horrible histories back on the shelf. You know, this is why, because they love the book so much. They mean so much to them. So that is where this, you know, lifelong reading comes from. Does it improve intelligence? Now, the jury's out, because there comes a point when you sort of plateau where every kid gets to a reading age of a certain time. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that a child that reads early or is read to has a higher intelligence. But I think what it does do is it improves their critical thinking. It improves their problem solving, pattern recognition, like we talked about, association of words, understanding perspectives, definitely, and empathy. And another little story, very much about Ben, as always. Before he was actually reading, we were given these picture books, and it's just a big page of loads of stuff going on, and you pick a piece, like a square within this huge jigsaw, if you like, of a picture. And there's a little girl, and she's crying. She's sitting on the curb, and she's holding a lead, but there's no dog. And so you say to, like, I'd say to Ben, do you see that little girl down there? What's she doing? And oh, she's crying and she seems upset. Why do you think that might be? And he said, she might have dropped her ice cream. She might have dropped her ice cream. You're absolutely right. But I think there's a bigger clue. See if you can look closer. And he'd look and he'd go, she's holding a lead. Should we look for her dog? And then we looked all around the page until we found the dog. So the association of child, sad, dog, lead, you're creating these patterns again. And I would then say to him, because I knew that I had to work with things like empathy, and because of his particular autism, where they don't necessarily always have the most empathetic kind of character. So I was explained to, when he was very, very young, to work on that so that he would be able to express himself. So I would say to him, how do you think she feels? And he said, she'd be sad. And I'm like, yeah, but like, do you think she's frightened that she's lost the dog? Or what do you think? And he'd be like, yeah, I think she's frightened. And she might get into trouble as well. Well, she might get into trouble, but if we find the dog, she won't get into trouble. Oh yeah, that's okay then. So when we found the dog, we can then say, oh, thank goodness. How do you think she feels now? Oh, she'll be feeling much happier and relieved. And I bet she's not scared anymore. And we could talk for about 5 minutes about this tiny little part of this huge picture of a girl sitting on the curb crying, holding a lead. And what I'm saying is that I'm not doing anything special, but I'm doing something that I was told when I went to my autistic classes on how to work with children with autism. And I don't think it's just autism. I think it's all children. That is such a clever way to make those links and problem solving and critical thinking and empathy and all the other things that we've talked about. So that was something we did, and it worked. I think the one thing it did do, and this is something I definitely can confirm from experience, both with Harry and with Ben, is it's increased curiosity. He was curious to look for more. So if we read one book from the Horrible History series, he would be curious enough to go and look for what other ones were in the libraries. Yeah, he was curious enough to go and say, I might like that author, or I might like that book. Terry Pratchett, did he write any others? Oh, Mum, he wrote nearly 50 books. Oh, great. Says Mum, let's go find them all. No, we're not a completionist. Remember, we talked about this. We don't have to own them all. You can get them out from the library, but no, we would go to eBay and buy them. But the thing about it was that if you're interested, that shows you want the next bit. You want to be fed the next book from that author, the next book in the series, the next part to the story. That is curiosity. And that is, if you can create curiosity, you create something that is amazing. And then those child ask questions. The more questions they ask, the more knowledge they gain. So curiosity is a huge one. I think that exposing children to books, new places, new ideas, new experiences, even if they don't go to the seaside, they almost can feel the sand. If you describe it, if you talk about what the sound of the sea, if it's described in enough detail, they'll almost be able to feel the water. And if the sun is blazing, we don't often say that in the UK, but if the sun is blazing, they could imagine what it would feel like on their skin. So it's all about you working with them with those words to help them to actually feel from those words from those books. And I definitely tried to do that when I was writing. I was writing and always writing in the position of trying to say, it's another delivery, I apologize. I told you this is my illness. It's not my fault. It's the tablets. But the curiosity part of this conversation is that not only does it make them curious to look at other books and other authors and it makes them curious enough to say, when they write their stories in school, when they write their essays, when they have to write, teachers will say when they're about 7 or 8, I'm going to give you the opening line of your story, and now you have to finish it, okay? The gate creaked, and I peered around the corner. And that's it. That's all they get. And then they have to start writing. Well, because of all the books they've read and because of all the stories they've written, that it's so much easier for them to pick the pen up and start writing. And because they've done the spidergrams, which is how they teach them at school to write who's in the book, who's in your story, rather. I'm in the book already. Who's in the story, what characters, what happens, what's the conclusion, what's the middle, what's the end. They're taught to do all this spidergram stuff now. And Ben would almost have the story written out by the time he finished, because he'd fill in his spidergram, and then he could just pick up his pen and he'd be whoop, and the teacher would have to decipher all the spiky handwriting, because he'd be writing so quickly because he had to get it all down. So I think that's the kind of thing that I really want to. They're the key things that I've learned from teaching my own child, from watching my nephew, from watching my oldest nephew Jack, who the Jack and Water books are about, who's just about to go to New York, and has got an amazing job, an amazing opportunity in AI. He's called Doctor now. He's Doctor Jack. So he's got his PhD, but he's also got his doctor in medicine. So he's like Doctor. The thing about him, he's so curious. He can never just know something. He has to know everything about it. So if I tell him, oh, my back and my legs have been hurting, but why? But when? And how? And what have you done? And why did you fall? And I'm like, I give up now. I'm like, I can just send you the letters from the hospital. I'm like, I can't talk your language. He's very factual, direct, very unemotional, very. I think that being a doctor, a physical doctor, has taken a lot of the emotion out of his diagnosis method, which is give me the facts and not the rest of the story. When I want to tell him how I fell and I landed on the bed and I bounced, and he's not interested. It's, you fell. Why did you fall? What went wrong for you to fall? Whereas I want to tell him the part that was hilarious because I lost 3 fingernails and this and this and this. No, not interested. Doesn't want the flowery stuff. Just give me the facts. I think that the academia of that child now, he's probably one of the top AI medic people in the world at the moment. He's been to 17 countries. He's working with AI data, medical data, and using databases to help cure diseases by sharing information. Because, for example, and I'm sure I've said this before, in the UK, every single piece of medical data is based on a white man. Forget female and forget any other race or colour, creed or anything else. We are saying white man. So if somebody has sickle cell, for example, that wouldn't get picked up because that's not something that would automatically be tested, because they're looking at white man data. So what Jack has been doing is collating data from the Philippines, from China, from South Africa, to the working with people in Australia. He's been over to Canada. He's been to I think maybe 10 of the states and 10 of the United States. He's been to Philippines, if I haven't mentioned that already. But the point is, it's all this stuff, and people are going, have my data, have it. Because the more data that you put into this AI machine, the more chance they are of getting an actual diagnosis that's real and genuine for you. When you're on the operating table or when you're ill, they will have data on people who are like you. Like, I'm not a man, I have female bits. You are a man, you've got male bits. We are different. Fundamentally, our plumbing is different, and yet we're all treated exactly the same. So I think this is why I say that from that child wanting to be a doctor at the age of 4, he has just been in academia pretty much since he was 16 years old. He has been reading medical journals, and that's his bedtime reading. Well, fine. If that's what you're interested in and that's what you're curious about, you go all the way. Look where he's gone. First job at 29, proper job, no fellowship, $250,000. First job, 29 years old. I mean, his auntie's been helping him out, as is his dad and everyone else. But the point is, we've got him there and now he's free. But that is academia. And that would never have happened had he not have been that interested in medicine and books and learning. And I think that what we're saying is Ben could never have written a story because of his lack of imagination, for want of a better word. And then we had to teach him imagination. Why can't I draw a rocket ship? I don't understand. Well, the reason you can't draw a rocket ship is because you have a 3D image of a rocket ship in your mind and you're trying to put that onto paper, and that's flat. And there's such a confusion between the round shape that he's got and the flat that he's trying to draw. It just won't compute. And then the teacher said to him, how about this? How about we imagine a toilet roll holder, like the cone of a toilet roll holder. Imagine that underneath your piece of paper and draw around it. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he was happy. There was no toilet roll there, but it was just to get him to think about that shape and explain to him how and what it meant. And I think that is so important, to have teachers that can understand every child's nuances and their differences. But then he could write his story about his rocket ship that went to Mars, because that little moment of helping him have that blockage, bosh, off he'd go, write a story about going to Mars. And he was riding the rocket ship, which I think is really interesting. But side saddle on a rocket ship is an interesting way to go. Probably would be not a good idea, but I think it's interesting that was a really clever teacher, a really smart teacher. So just to summarize, big picture, it builds the brain, no question. Nobody can argue with that. It strengthens relationships with family and whoever it is that's reading to them, babysitters or teachers, whoever. Boosts language and thinking. Encourages curiosity and imagination. Lays the foundation for lifelong learning. And I think being read to is so important that sometimes even more than reading independently, before they get to that stage, when you're reading to them, the fun that you two can have is such a huge boost. So when you're talking about your grandchildren, probably when you've got more time than you had when you was a parent, when you can play with them with words and books and stories and voices. I always think of Jay and his voices and how I imagine that he would read a story to children. Would be so much fun, because he could do all the voices. And I think that so to really summarize, being face to face is great. Whether it's going to be story time with at a certain time each day, whether it's before bedtime stories, we all know that. But the key is there is absolutely a correlation, no question, not disputable, that reading helps curiosity, imagination, and empathy, and an understanding of language. So I'm going to leave it there. Annie, have you got any comments or anything that you would like to say?
I got any comments? I'm still the 4-year-old. I still want to read that story like a 4-year-old. That's fun in that. And let's welcome more of our friends. So who mentioned Sharon Rose earlier? She loves Ben. That's a book, right? No, your son Ben, not a book. No,
that's what you mean.
Yeah, this the riding side on the space rocket. I can't imagine that. Like Coach K, how are you doing? She says, thanks to AI, you can draw 3D images on paper now. That's not draw. You can download them, right? No, I think AI gives us a whole different thing when it comes to reading and books. Nikki, how are you doing? No, so thank you for joining us. Coach K says, I was recently told men say that they think and women how we feel. I can see that. Yeah, possibly. Well, I said if we go by Ben's rockets, I'm sure men are from Mars, women are from somewhere
Venus.
else, right?
Venus.
Nah, somewhere else, full stop.
Read that
How you
book.
doing? How you doing, William? Good to see you.
Hello.
William Bill. Mr. Omar, I see you too. Dr. Lise is here. We have got our show
Yay.
tonight. What are we
have.
talking about, Paulette? I bet you ain't got a clue. No. Yeah, no. I've forgotten as well. No, it's Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, yeah.
It's about, I was going to say love, and I thought that sounded a bit too crass. But
No,
we're
you're
talking
close.
about love.
Yes, and how to feel the love in menopause. That's what we're talking about, really.
Yeah.
And we've got two special guests, Gabe Leo, is that his name? And also Jack Holberg's coming as well. So I'm gonna apply to be on her show as I apply. She's invited me, so I'll book a date eventually. Yeah, let's see how that goes, shall we?
Blazing sunshine.
Yes.
No.
We don't say that much in the UK. In the some days, in a couple of days in the summer, we do. Only a couple of days.
That's why you have to have a good imagination in the UK.
Yes.
You have to remember it.
Indeed.
How did it feel?
Who else have I missed someone? I don't think I have. I think that's most people who've put in the comments. Mr. Cyrus is here as well.
Hey.
He called me for the link, so I shared the link with him. I said, Dr. Dorothea, how are you? I'm not used to seeing you in daytime during the week. Dr. Dorothea is one of our staples on our Positivity Live events on Fridays, but you're here. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. Jay says, it's crazy. My wife read to my kids, but my kids don't read to their kids. I tell you, isn't that a complication, Jay? Isn't that a proper complication, right? You know, that's why we wonder. We're left to wonder. There's many things we have to wonder for that. It's a command language, versus more, I guess, versus much more. That's what books does for you. They constantly read does for you, right?
Absolutely.
It's not that we're taught. Do consider it as an important point. It really is, right?
And I really do think that, as I said to you, one little tiny section of this page was the little girl sitting on the pavement. I mean, the first thing Ben thought of was that she dropped her ice cream. I remember that so clearly because he dropped his ice cream and he sat on the pavement and cried at Disney. And I remember that as clear as day. So I'm sure that was why he said it, right? So Dr. Zeus, absolutely, Moses. That's what I was saying. That Ben, we could recite the book. Like, it was horrendous. If I daren't miss out one word, But the thing about the empathy and why is she crying? Why is she upset? Why is she sad? You can make a story out of just one tiny little bit of a great big picture they gave us. And I think to myself, those make great table mats. You buy these table mats now and they're on the table and the kids can make stories up. But you know what? They don't. They just get the dinner stomped in front of them and that's kind of it. And I really think that imagination and helping them to have an imagination and be curious makes them want to read, makes them be interested. And it also makes their stories when they come to school so much more interesting. I remember my teacher telling me that my mock exam for English language, apparently she read it out in the staff room because it was so funny. And it was about a biscuit factory. And somebody was wearing a tie, and the tie, I must have seen it somewhere, that this Anyway, I don't know, but the tie got caught in the machine, and so he decided just to chop the tie off and not tell anyone. And they wondered why the biscuits were, and they were wondering why the biscuits were like little bits sticking out of them, and nobody knew why. It was a mystery. And they were eating them and going, well, they taste lovely and they taste great. And the guy whose tie it was that had gone missing, you know, that had been eaten into the biscuit factory machine. And you know, I was describing all these biscuits that had changed color, and you know, they were like, well, how can we reproduce this? This is fantastic. You know, these are the best biscuits. It was like Willy Wonka meets Paulette Hallam, or Paulette Gallagher then, in the biscuit factory. And the teacher thought it was so imaginative and interesting and fun. And in the end, they were called the Blue Biscuits, and the guy's blue tie was in the biscuit machine, right? The story was called The Missing Tie. And no one even knew from the title, The Missing Tie, what it was about until you read the story. And that must have come from somewhere. And for her, I got an amazing grade and told it could become a story. You know, it really should have been a children's story. And I was like, really? And I just thought it was really funny, you know. And I think it was because, and I can tell, at one of my foster homes that I was at, she opened a jar of coffee, and in the jar of coffee was a like a piece, like a tie that you'd put, like a cable tie, but it was a small one, a small like cable tie in the jar of coffee. And she wrote to Nestle or wherever it was, and they sent a huge box of goodies, you know. And I suppose that had stuck in my mind. How did that bit of plastic get in the jar? Whoever knows. But that must have been what prompted the story. And I can only tell you that, you know, when you get an A star, you don't mind that in your GCSE, you know, or O level then. But it's about imagination, right? And I think that even in these rooms, when we're telling stories and we're explaining about what we're trying to do is elevate reading. What we're trying to do is get parents to engage with children. What we're trying to do is say to parents, reading is so important. Or looking at picture books, or talking about stories, just making things up, even if it's about a load of rubbish, doesn't matter. It prompts a conversation. Children don't speak these days. They grunt and they answer questions or commands, but they don't come to you with all this happened, this happened, that, you know, because there's just the lack of communication there. Because unfortunately they're attached to a device, and we need to get that device out of their hands and the book back into their hands. Or if they have got a device, it's an audio book they're listening to, or they're reading a book on a device. That I don't mind, but playing games and doing stuff that's not going to be helping their mind, not good. So I'm up for any conversation. Anybody who would like to pop up on stage quickly and have a point of view, please do.
You got a few minutes if you want to come on stage. I have sent the links out. Dorothea says she's here for her grandchildren and other little ones.
That's it. Absolutely, Dr. Dorothea.
Coach K corrects me rightly. You know, you don't create 3D images. You can create 3D images with commands. Of course, you can with prompts, right? Yeah. You know, and I guess when you print them, I don't know. You know, we have to mention AI when we talk about reading, because AI has infiltrated the writer's world, the author's world. Which I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing, you know. But then, you know, I think you mentioned just now, you know, we read on devices. That's mostly AI. You know, AI, not AI content, but AI enabled. You know,
AI enabled, definitely. But
Yeah.
when people are just going into, one of these Gemini or whatever it is and just saying, I want to write a sexy romance novel about a guy that's tall, dark, and handsome, um, and I'm not necessarily talking about you, any, but somebody who, I want to write a romance
I'll put
novel.
you on big screen if you carry on
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I know. But what I'm saying is that if you're wanting to write something like that, and you can
Mm.
just press a button, it goes, and then it spills out a load of stuff. 50 Shades of Grey, no doubt, was written by some sort of early AI, because if you
You
actually
think so?
told you, I read it and it was copy and paste. There was so much copy and paste. You could literally, I shouldn't be that bothered, but I am. I got a
No, but
yellow
once
cat.
once you know it's AI, that's with anything. I think when you look at a picture, if you know it's AI, it affects me. And it's like when I listen to an audio book, the first thing I'm listening for is whether the person who's reading it, even if it sounds brilliant, every word's correct. I'm always listening for the inflection points on
Mm.
some words. And then once I pick up one, you lost me. My mind just goes funny. I'm like, I can't take you seriously. It's like when someone makes a mistake in a book, there's a typo. Once you see one, you suddenly fixate on where's the next one? Because I know this person hasn't done a thorough job. So it's something similar to that. Look, I will say this. I think reading is big business. It's education, really. So in Nigeria, when I was in Nigeria as a kid, I swear most of my school days was simply reading and comprehension is what they call it, right? You read something, you have to answer questions. That's just how it works. That's education in Africa, right? It has of course, it has the benefits because you get all the things you talked about today, the imagination, so and your language skills develop very quickly. So
Very.
by the time I came back to the UK, given that I was very good at reading and comprehension, I could speak better English than most British kids. They were shocked, and half of them didn't believe that I didn't grow up, in the next town, next school. But that's a good thing. But I think I've carried that on till now, Paulette.
Mm.
I can't read anything. Even in my audiobooks, I can't read anything without picking something out of it. Always, and I say, most of my events are based on what I read. I think I read something, and I think, okay, have I really learned that? Do I really get it? And sometimes it's only when I go back to make sure I get it, because I'm going to talk about it, that I see something that was so obvious before I just didn't see it. And you think,
Yes.
how didn't I see that? I do that pretty much every day. I can't read something without. It feels like stealing from it.
Yeah.
I'll take something from it. Whether it's a paragraph, an idea, I always take something from everything I read, apart from
There's
newspapers.
always a learning, as I always say.
Yes, there's always something
What was your
that
learning? What have
yeah.
you gained from that? What did you get from it? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as children, um, I think what Dr. Dorothea said is so true, is that
Mm,
perhaps grandparents have got more time. Parents are always on the run, but
mm,
I
mm,
think, whether they're working full time or not, I think you can set aside some time at the weekends, even if you can't do it during the week. And that makes it even more special, because on
mm,
Saturday or on Friday night, we're going to be, sit down with a book and we're going to do this, that, and the other. And I think it's about a closeness, an interaction, and an emotional growth
mm,
that you get from that one-on-one time with somebody that cares about you in some way,
mm,
shape, or form. Reading to you or reading with you seems to feel very, very much that you care. That's what it says. That you're valued and we care for you, and that is really what every child wants.
mm.
And I think that is really something that's important. for us all to know, you know. And the other one is the curiosity thing. If you don't have a curious mind, ask yourself why.
Yeah.
You're not always asking why. If you're just going along with everything, ask yourself why. Because if you're not curious in your life, curious in your relationship, curious in your children's family, whatever, if you're not curious, then you're not showing interest. And
Yeah,
that's
I don't think
something.
I don't think you're not really living, are you?
No,
I think the world, our existence is based on the wonderment of life, that wow factor. And I say, finding wow in everything that we see. There's wow in everything.
yes.
If you and I think if without that, life is just grey.
Yeah.
It's just grey. There's no color really. I think having that wonderment is it's what life's all about, really. Sharon Rose, I agree with you. Reading and comprehension, it teaches critical thinking. Of course, it can. I think that's probably, I don't know, that's when you do what Paulette says, be interested. For some people, it can look like rote learning. I read it to answer questions. Yeah, without thinking in between. So what people, that's what someone will tell you.
I have a funny story about that.
Yeah.
And I'll finish on a very quick one, but it is worth telling because it's very funny. Ben was doing one of these comprehensions where you read the poem and then you give the question was, could the poet have used a different word instead of worthy? And Ben wrote, I don't know him.
Fair enough.
The next question was, do you think the poet was unhappy or happy when he wrote this poem? And it was a really morose poem. And Ben went, I don't know, because I can't ask him. And it went on and it went on. And it was like, if it was meant to be a comedy sketch, it would have been hysterical. But this was my son's homework. And I was like, Ben. And it said something like, do you think the poet enjoys writing poetry? And Ben went, how the heck am I supposed to know? And I had to go, right, let's read the poem again. And I read the poem, with lots and lots and lots of emotion. And I was like, really? It was terrible. Oh, it's a dreadful situation. And blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, And I'll be doing all of this. And he was like, I read the poem completely different now, Mum. I see what the poem's about now. I understand. Sometimes when it's flat, for a child like Ben, how the heck was he supposed to answer the question about whether the guy knew a different word? He has no idea. What they're saying is, look, he used the word sad, morose, disappointed, unhappy about 100 times. Do you think he could have used a different word when he used this word? Well, quite possibly, So the point I'm making, and this is what is again important, that's me sitting with him with his homework. Again, reading and working with homework. Charles will tell you as a maths teacher, so much of maths is reading the question.
Yeah.
And if they can't read the question, how the heck are they supposed to be able to answer it?
That's it. I'm an example of that in the A-level stats. I knew I wasn't the best I wasn't the greatest mathematician. I really wasn't. But I revised for a good 6 months, 7 months. I fainted a couple of times, and I literally, because I was rising around the clock. My friends, come exam day, went to the exam, looked at the exam paper. It's like gobbledygook. I couldn't understand the question, not a single one, and I couldn't answer a single question. I might have known the answer, I just couldn't understand the question. I couldn't decode it. And so, if you can't, say, even in maths, if you can't read to get what he's saying, nothing changes. You can't do anything, right? Hold on.
When Charles talks about the questions, especially the very wordy ones, which are, if they go to the sweet shop and they buy so many sweets, and then they come back from the sweet shop and they gave 3 to someone, 4 to someone, 3 to somebody else, and how many sweets you're left with,
How would I know? In the Ben way.
Do you understand? Right? It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa,
you lost me already.
you know?
You lost me. After the first 2 kids, you lost me.
So he could answer that question because he would replace the children with numbers. That's
Yeah.
one child, they got 3. That's child 2, they got 4. That's child 3, they got. And it's a completely different way of dealing with that critical thinking moment, right?
Yeah.
That we might not see, we might not understand. Someone like him, bang, straight away, right? But give him something like a poem where could the author, do you think the author poet was happy when he wrote this poem? No, how the hell do I know? I don't know him. I was like, can you give me his phone number? I'll give him a ring and ask him, kind of thing. It really was as direct as that. And you have to understand that the audience you're playing to, and we had to learn an awful lot on top of the normal stuff. But the most important thing for me to come from all of this is, hang on, what's got a message come up?
Sarah says that we're live on Readers TV.
Excellent.
So that's Sarah's website that lists events.
Lovely. Excellent.
And Coach K says readings create a very special bond.
It does.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. So who else is talking? Say Jay's talking as well. We all love Ben's answers, Sharon Rose. He's a straightforward guy. There's no fluff. It's exactly as it is. And that's just life is easier that way. It doesn't mean he's a happy kid, but he just doesn't have time for them side things that they. You have to get to know him. He'll make you laugh.
He's very funny. Very funny.
Very
direct, but very funny. He actually did say, "I will be a doctor, but I don't want to be one of those doctors that sits on the end of the bed and tells people they're going to die, because I don't think I've got the right manner for that, Mum." And I just think, you place your strengths, Ben.
It's just easier to just stand there and say, "You're going to die, my friend. Sorry."
Exactly. I'm really sorry.
Good luck on the other side.
I'm off for a tea break.
Yeah.
So
that's
the kids is the thing in some restaurants. It was all like, absolutely, and that is so great. The waiters give out the crayons. The kids have got fun things to do. I love that, Jay. And that used to be what we had when we were kids, right? And I mean, let's get back to it. Let's get back to the old-fashioned ways.
I'm not sure we're going to get back to old-fashioned ways. I think, hi, Mel, how are you doing? Superstar Melanie, I watch her shows on YouTube at best of times. Yeah. I was talking about trust. Mel, I'm talking about trust on Wednesday. That's tomorrow, right? And I think the question I'm asking my friends is, how do you trust yourself to do what you say you do, to follow through?
Accountability.
Well, now come, Mel. Join us. Come and talk to us, all right? And I thought of inviting you as a guest speaker. I'm just hoping you join. I think that's a big question for me, because I think it comes back to things that we're saying about reading, for example, right? We say we read, we get ideas, and we think, I'm going to do that. Well, we don't do any of it. And I say again,
I do.
I'm saying that's trusting yourself to do what you say you do, right? I think a lot of people don't trust themselves, and and then end up doing nothing. And I think books have such goodies in them. People that will tell you books are going out of fashion. I was going to be reading books. You're wrong. I think books hide all of life's secrets. And and the good thing is that we're the ones who write those books. Isn't that good? Isn't that magical?
It is. And I think that to finish, I really would just say this, that if you had a favorite book as a child, ask yourself why. Why was that my favorite book? What did that book bring back? What did it do for me that I love? Why would I want to, and then if you can get that feeling back inside, right? That feeling of, God, I love that book because X, Y, and Z, buy it, find it somewhere, go to an old library, or find it in an old bookstore, or order it, or look on eBay like we do. But find that book and have that childhood book that was so special to you. And I tell you something, it will give you the biggest hug. I swear to you, it's like when I got my book, it felt like my book is called Why I Love You. And it's every page is I love you so much because, and I'd never really had that word love used when I was younger. And so to have a whole book full of love, it felt like magic. It was like every time I opened it, it gave me a cuddle. Every time I opened it, it was my hug, and it can bring me to tears, the emotion attached to it. So really, guys, think about that book, remember it, and do yourself a favor and order it, because I think it's a magical thing. And also to show your children what was your favorite book. This was my favorite book. What's yours? Let's try and get them to have a favorite book so they can have that same thought and memory that we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Let's just read quickly what it says. Mum created a lifelong reader way before my first day. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is about books and bookmarks too. I had a bookmark that I had for years. It was really tatty, Winnie the Pooh one, and it said, I'm really bad at spelling. I've got all the right letters, but not necessarily in the right order. I thought that was brilliant, and I kept it for years.
I fold corners of pages.
No,
Those who love books, I can hear you dying, thinking that's Satan, child. That's me.
I would never. I do actually, to be fair, with textbooks and stuff, I'm a yellow marker girl. I don't do all this sticking labels on stuff. I just
I was mostly textbooks. But I think I suppose maybe a point that I say to leave on is that it's not too late to get to love books.
No,
it is just be curious and just want to enjoy a book. Read a book. Just read a book, right? Read a book. Find one that's of interest and read it. You might enjoy it.
Yeah. And go back to your childhood favorite, but think about what was, Huckleberry Finn or whatever it was.
Indeed.
Whatever that book is, find it and have it on your bookshelf and take it down every now and again and give it a hug, because it's a memory.
Yeah, the other thing is to write your book. Then I think that will make you. Well, when you work with me, you have to love your book. If you don't read your book several times and love it, the book doesn't get published. It doesn't go anywhere. All my authors have to read the book, and it's a chance to fall in love with your stories. If you don't love your stories, why should someone else love your stories?
Yeah,
that's my plea to all my authors, and I make them go through the process. They think I'm being mean, but I'm like, no, it's your book, right? Yes. Now, Mel, please do join us tomorrow. It's 5 p.m. EST. So that's 10 o'clock our time. So of course, there's Lisa's show tonight as well, my friends. So do join us for that one. We're talking love and Valentine and menopause. So you've got Jackie Holberg and Gabe Leo joining us. Before we go, Paulette, thank you so much for today, as always. Thank you, everyone that's joined us. We're not gone yet. So, Paulette, our big thing, author speakers.
Yes.
I'll let you practice what you're going to do on the video that everyone's going to get to watch, right? So tell us about it, Paulette. Why are you in it? What is it? Why should anyone care?
Okay, so I would say that if anyone has come to one of our shows or has seen how much we love books, how much we love learning, how much we love teaching, how much we love discussing, debating, everything starts from a story, whether it's a story about my son, a story about my life, a story about my business world, whatever it is, it's always about a story. And every story that I ever write, it's got so much personality to it because it's all about me. I'm in that book in some way, shape, or form. My sarcasm, my humor, my whatever, it's all in the book. You find everything about me in my books because I love books so much and because I love learning and because I love to put that learning or help that learning come through the stage, through the screen, through the actual books into your hands,
through the covers.
into you. I want to get my books into your hands, but in order for you to do that, in order for you to know about Jack and Mortar, why Jack and Mortar is so important, I want you to know why I write. I want you to know what's important and what I get from it and how I can inspire you to either buy the books, gift the books, or at the very least, tell somebody about the books. And if you do that, then we've won. But on top of that, you might just get something from our conference that says, I'm going to write a book. I know exactly what I want to write about. Or I've had this in my mind for so long. Now's my time. There's never a right time. It's like when they say about having a baby. When's the right time to have a baby? Who knows? All right? Who knows? Because if you wait till you can afford it, you'll never have a baby. So I think the same thing applies to writing your book. There's never a right time. There's never a wrong time. Just start writing. Start writing a chapter. And when you've written one chapter, you might find that leads on to the next. So what I want to do is inspire other people to have the love of writing and reading that I have. And that's why I'm involved in this conference.
Excellent. Well, no, I can use some clips. Also, when you do the proper recording, then I can have a whole video without the distractions of the screen looking at us. No, thank you so much for that. I'm excited, my friends. Do join us. I have got 6 of the best authors on LinkedIn. So I'll show you a very, very short promo so you can get an idea of who. Now, so the event page is up. So let's let Cyrus say hello, and then while you do that, I'll get the link for the event page, so people can start buying their tickets. Today is the day. I'm hijacking this show to Paulette because I'm going to share my payment link. We're going to be in touch with all of you to buy tickets. Now, tickets are, I think they're $12, £10. All right. So do join us. So we're going to have 150 people there. So do join us, and you're going to be inspired. You're going to be amazed by the people in our network. And author speakers. This is the first one of many. So the next one could be you. If you don't write that book, you can't be an author speaker, can you, Paulette? Kind of stuff, right? How you doing, Kimberly? You're never too late. You're here, right? And hopefully, say worst case, you can watch the replay if you missed a lot of what we talked about. So let's talk to Cyrus very quickly, and then we can head off because we've got other shows to do today. How you doing, Cyrus?
Oh, hi everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for that invite. We are, as we speak, we are live on Readers TV as well. It's a pleasure to present Annie Osang and Paulette Hallam, 2 of my favorite authors, to the avid readers who actually go to Readers TV and satisfy their need for reading. So regarding reading to kids, I just wanted to say, please read to your kids, not because they need to learn reading from you. They're going to read it in school or read it from the media, learn it from the media anyway. It's not that your kids, it's not that our kids need to learn how to read from us, even though it's a fantastic idea to actually teach them how to read from early age as well. But reading to them is your way of influencing them. And because they're very impressionable, and they're gonna get influenced from all directions. They're gonna be influenced left, right, and center. Are you gonna be the biggest influencer in their life? Well, that's something for you to decide. And preferably read to them before they turn 9, because between ages 9 to 13 is when they start talking about the stuff behind your back, not in front of you, right? So, and by the age of 14, mentally speaking, they get disconnected and they fly away from the nest, even though physically they might not fly away from the nest for years, for the years after that. But 14 is the age when they become they want to become independent. I'm not saying they are independent, but they want to become independent. That's when they make autonomous decisions. So if you're reading to them up to the age of 13, if you're not reading to them up to the age of 13, you are doing them a disservice. Okay, and who better than you can teach them and shape their personality? So if you're reading to them, you're shaping them, and if you turn them into analytical thinkers, you're setting up for a really successful future as well. Because we all know that right now, I mean that process started like 10 years ago. In the post Facebook world, people have decisions made for them. Okay, so if you teach them how to make analytical decisions and think analytically, they will be able to get the outcomes they want. Otherwise, the outcomes will be given to them. And if they're not readers, they're not leaders. Okay, readers are leaders are readers. So you have to turn them into readers, so they can find the sources when they have problems. That gives them the ability to find solutions from various sources. And I know a lot of my friends whose first reaction is depression when they face a problem. They just go to the corner of a dark room and cry, feel despair, and they feel disconnected from the world. But if you read to your kids, you teach them, oh, hang on, there's a source, there's a solution, and it's always a shelf away from you. Just go to the shelf and pick up the book and read it and find a solution to your problem. Thank you so much, Annie and Paula, for this fantastic events that you guys have been doing for a while as well. It's a pleasure to be a part of it.
Thank you. And I think you're absolutely right. The most important thing, I don't think that, as I said before about academia, in order to be able to read academic books, in order to be able to read very difficult questions, very wordy questions that can send you into a loop, if you haven't had that reading experience, that in-depth reading experience, you're going to fall at the first hurdle. And that's not me being cruel or mean or wicked. I'm just saying it's a fact. And, you know, I know from when Charles said to me, I cannot believe how many kids I've got that have just come from primary school whose reading age is well below what it should be, that they cannot read the questions on the sheet that I'm giving them. I'm having to almost teach them an English lesson in order to teach a maths lesson. And that is something that is wrong, and it's wrong with our system in terms of our education. We may have one of the best allegedly, but I think when it's underfunded, we end up with problems. And as you go through life, if you haven't grasped emotional intelligence, you haven't grasped an ability to be an empath, an ability to be angry, inability to be all the emotions that you need, you can't possibly get by in life. You're going to struggle. And unfortunately, we've got a whole generation of strugglers. I'm sorry, but we've got a whole generation of strugglers, and those not stragglers, strugglers. They're all struggling with something, whether it's needing counselling, needing additional support, whether it's needing send help, whether it's needing a diagnosis, whether it's needing therapy, counselling. Honestly, the list goes on and on and on. And I have a friend who is very senior in education, and they said to me, we've got that many children who are putting requests in to be sitting in exam rooms on their own, so that then they haven't got the anxiety of other people, that we could literally fill every room in the school. But we don't have enough adjudicators or the funding to do it. So we're having to ask parents to come in, and a different parent will be an adjudicator, just so they can cover that need. Think about that. We have a whole, there's a word called flaky, and I don't like the word very much, but I think it's a word that I've heard used to say that there are so many people that are in need. There has to be a reason for it. They weren't like that when we were at school. So that's what I'd like to finish on. I'm going to leave that one there. Have a
Yeah,
think.
you sound old when you say it like that.
Yeah,
Back in our day, there were dinosaurs
okay.
on the street. No,
You speak
important
for
point
yourself.
you
There
made.
weren't any dinosaurs on my street.
Yes, important
I
point you
had
made.
cavemen.
Yes, they were the thing, were they? Kimberly, I think I agree with you. I was going to ask how young can you start? Well, you can never start too. You can't start
Never
too young.
start too young.
So babies, in the belly, essentially in utero. That's many people say that's where it starts for many people.
Yes.
Because they do understand, they do hear you, and they do form. The benefits Paulette talked about, and they start when babies are still in the womb, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And the other one is an interesting, very good before we go. I know we said we weren't going to go on and on, but it's just 2 seconds. When people are in comas, and I was in a coma, when you are unconscious, you can hear everything around you. You can hear every word they say, and you hear them talking about DNRs and all kinds of things, which you don't want to hear about. But when people come in and they sit by the side of you and they read to you, it's the most wonderful thing in the world, right? Whether we're reading the Bible or whether you're reading a book, if you're sitting by the side of somebody and you are reading to them and you think they can't hear you, I could hear every word, and I'm sure they can too. And I think it's the most wonderful thing to do. And in fact, they're now talking about asking volunteer readers to go in to sit and read to patients who are in a comatose state, because perhaps family members don't feel comfortable. I don't know. But I'm just saying that they're asking for that now. So there must be something in this. We are talking about the subconscious and the conscious mind, and we are talking about how young can you learn. And I believe you're learning definitely in the uterus, and I definitely believe when you're in a coma, from start to finish. So absolutely, books will be with us forever in some form or other. They will be with us forever. On that note, Anio Sung, I think we must call it a day.
Right.
It's 5 o'clock.
Yeah. So Natalie, thanks for joining us. Yes, we all well. Hopefully you are too. So I'm going to show you 2 videos as we go, my friends. So the first one is about our author speakers event, which Paulette and I are putting on. Let's hope I got the right video, Paulette. Let's hope, right? But it's a short one. There's 6 speakers, so do join us. Tickets are £10. What's that? $12 if that. You get the full info. The LinkedIn page is up now, and so we're going to start our marketing in earnest. So if you just want the ticket link, there you go. And of course, part of my remit is to publicize my amazing sponsors, which Power Thinking app is one of them. Jack and Water book series. I wonder who that is. That's Paulette, right? And also, the Full Circle support. There's a counseling service that works online across the world. Jack and Water books. I'm glad you hold them up, Paulette. Now let's end with a quick show about what Jack and Water books are. Kimberly, I hear you. Little kids they're reading iPads. So does Paulette, by the way. We really need to encourage parents to visit the library and have books in their home. I don't know. E-books are a thing, right? They're a thing. They're still books.
I think there is something to having it in your hand. I told you about the book that I take off the shelf and it feels like a hug. I think there is something about having a book in your hand. I still buy books rather than ebooks personally, but that's me. I love a book.
Yes. I like convenience of audiobooks. I can't hide it because I love to listen to a good book. But so if you have to write the book first, publish it as a book, and then turn it into an audio thing. Even when there's a video book, I'm sure they're going to come next. Are they called films? You can have video books, right? Anyway, let me show you Jack and Water, and I'll put the link in the comments. So do check out the Jack and Water books, especially if you've got kids. So bye everyone. So my next show in an hour and a half is the What If Room, right? So I'm going to talk about how do you quantum leap your idea. So in last event I talked about building your bold idea through incremental improvements, iteration I call it, right? Because you can iterate your way to a great solution. Today I'm going to tell you how you bypass all that stuff, go from literally zero to a great to the idea that everyone needs, right? So it's a true quantum leap way of doing things. If you always think, what's he talking about? Join us. I'm sure I'm going to send you all the link anyway, right? Do join us for the conversation, then you'll learn that there is a way to come up with an idea that no one's doing, and that'll be your bold idea. Jack and Water books first, my friends. Thanks, Paulette. Thanks, Cyrus. I appreciate you, my friend. You take care.
Walter, #1 bestseller worldwide. Stories that inspire, becoming every child's guide. She teaches resilience, skill by skill, slowing worries down until they're still. Approaching issues with a stronger mind, building generations one heart at a time. When the storm clouds gather and you don't know what to do, take a deep breath, clear your mind, let the answer come to you. Walter's gonna be there in your present and your future too. So just stop and ask yourself, what would Walter do? What would Walter do? What would Walter do? What would Walter do? Not for profit, but for every child's right to handle smaller challenges, to stand and fly. The bigger stuff takes longer, that's okay, but confidence begins with what we do today. Trustworthy souls and integrity shine at Mental Wellness Cafe. She draws the line between drowning in the darkness and finding light. She lifts them up, teaches them to hold on tight. When the storm clouds gather and you don't know what to do, take a deep breath, clear your mind, let the answer come to you. Walter's gonna be there in your present and your future too. So just stop and ask yourself, what would Walter do? What would Walter do? To clear your mind, give yourself headspace to think before you let the pressure make your spirit sink. Self-belief and talking to someone you trust These are the tools that lift us from the dust. She champions the dignity of growing strong. Every child capable, they belong all along. Generations rising with the strength she's built. Paulette's legacy, a world without guilt. From Huntington to hearts across the globe, her compassion is the thread that she has woven and sewed. Adults and children, all walks of life, she's extending her